Welcome to Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word. And as you know, I have been on a series dealing with the 8 mission statements of my company. The 8 mission statements that the company that Pastor James and I own and work in. And today is the last of those mission statements. Now, the unusual thing about today, there are 8 mission statements, and I've already preached 8 messages on the 8 mission statements. The 8th mission statement I actually preached as number 3. God redirected it because that 8th mission statement is, as we are blessed, we shall bless others. And I preached this as the 3rd one, but yet God has me to not so much as duplicate it, but it's for a different angle. So actually, blessing others is a double portion, a double message, because it is really important. In business in particular, most people understand the getting part. But it is a blessing others that we often have a difficulty of doing and partaking in, because it is a natural nature to see about me and mine. But it is not a natural nature to bless others. It is not a natural nature to treat your neighbor as yourself. That is not a natural nature. That is a higher Christ-like nature. It is not a natural nature to forgive. Those are not natural natures. Do you know even a child knows the words very clearly? It's mine. They understand that very clearly, but and I see it, I've even seen it sometimes even in my children. I remember once we went to a restaurant and I'd gotten everybody some food, and I asked, could I have a French fry? And they said, it's mine, these my fries. And I'm thinking to myself, I bought the fries. You haven't paid a penny for it, and I can't get a fry. So sometimes our natural nature, now they're matured, that's back when they were little. Now they would freely give daddy anything daddy asked them. That was back when they were immature and little bitty boys. But that was back in the days of its mind. But sometimes it is so difficult for us to understand, to truly understand the power of blessing others. And actually, even though the prior 8 messages have been on the mission statements of our company, today is going to be a little bit different, because it's going to talk about the mission statements and how another man did it. And that man actually is S. Truett Cathy. For those of you who don't know who he is, he's the founder and former president of Chick-fil-A. He passed away at the age of 93 a few years ago. But Truett Cathy was a phenomenal man, not just in terms of business, but his philosophy and how he let his philosophy flow through his business. And when you look at their mission statement, a lot of companies just have one little line as a mission statement, but Chick-fil-A was very similar, or is very similar to the way we have ours. We got 8 and they had 7. So it wasn't just one, they had a whole, and it's interesting when I read right what was in the middle of their philosophy. Their philosophy basically said, we will let God be shown and flow through everything that we do. He sold chicken, but he let God flow through his chicken. See, no matter what you do, you can let the power of God flow through whatever you do, even if it's chicken. You can let God flow through everything that you do. And I met with one of the members here last week. We had lunch, and we just got on the subject of Chick-fil-A and Cathy, and I looked up and I looked to see if he read any or written any books, and there was one particular book called The Generosity Factor by S. Truett Cathy and one other gentleman who actually wrote the book, but it was about the life of Cathy in a parable form. I purchased the book, and I read it. And today I want to actually talk about what was in that book because it embodies the 8th mission statement of our company, of thewoman.com. As we are blessed, we shall bless others. And Kathy had this real fire for giving. And that's what the book, The Generosity Factor. There are very few business books about giving your money away. Most business books are about how to get more money. Very few books about how to give your money away. But you can find almost 99.9% of the business books out there are how to get more and more and more and more. But Kathy understood something. And you could even tell when you walk into their restaurant and you ask them for something, they'll always respond with those 2 words.
My pleasure. You have a fantastic day.
And Bridget will take payment for you just around the corner. My pleasure.
Be able to take your payment up at the red umbrella and we're all set. All right, my pleasure.
My son Christian began to respond to me when I would ask him to do something, and after he'd done it, he would simply say, my pleasure. And do you know that's a different, it's one of the reasons why I like my Alexa. I have one of the little Amazon Alexas. And I can say, Alexa, turn on the main lights. The main lights will come on. And then Alexa will say, okay. Alexa, turn the temperature to 75. The temperature will set to 75. And Alexa will say, okay. Do you know it's just a pleasure sometimes to be able to ask folk to do something and you never get any back talk, you never get a frown, you never get all you get from it. And sometimes I just like telling Alexa to do something because I know I'm not going to get any backlash, any hassle, any weird looks. All I'm going to get, and it's in the sweetest tone. Okay. Do you know, and sometimes I don't even need the light cut on. Sometimes I'll just say, Alexa, cut on the bed light. Okay. And I just want to hear that, okay. So sometimes it's just Truett Kathy understood the power of my pleasure. It's part of their customer service declaration in their mission statement, just like we have in our mission statement. We want to have customer service, so we treat our customers like we want to be treated. But today I want to talk about, as we are blessed, we shall bless others. And in the book, The Generosity Factor, Truett says, first of all, there are 4 types of giving. You've heard 3 of these already. You give of your time, you give of your treasure, you give of your talent. But then he says you also give of touch. Some people just need to be touched. It just in the middle of a pandemic, you can't even touch anybody. But sometimes it's just a matter of touching a person's heart. It's just a matter of a compliment. You see something beautiful about them. You say something about them that warms them, that makes them, you touch their heart. And sometimes people don't need money. They don't need your wisdom. They just need a good, kind word. They haven't been uplifted. And some folk literally just need a warm hug. You'd be surprised how rare it is just to have a warm, genuine hug. I read once even about the statistics of a man who kisses his wife before he leaves for work will reduce his chance of getting in an accident by half. So men, if you really want to make your driving safer, it's not the seatbelt. Now wear your seatbelt, but just a kiss before you leave the house will reduce your accident potential by half, because there's something about it. If you can just kiss your wife before you leave, something about that, well, it changes you. So you're just happier because if you leave and you're mad and you're on front, you're not even noticing what goes on around your then you speed, you're more irritable, you won't wait, you have less patience. Your accident potential doubles. So there are some things that just even a touch. So Truett gave these 4 things of how you give: your time, your talent, your treasure, and your touch. But in the book, he began to go through 5 basic things that you need to understand about giving. And Truett says the first thing you need to understand about giving is he owns it all. He owns it all. Now here is a man worth billions of dollars. At the time he wrote the book, he had over 1,000 restaurants. He said the first thing you need to understand about giving is he owns it all. I don't care how much you have. He owns it all. You don't really, in truth, own any of it. He owns it all. You're only the steward of it. So that's the first thing. He owns it all. And I understand that clearer and clearer even in business. And even though we work hard, I look at all of our success. It began with a seed, and it begins with a seed of a word of God or an idea that's implanted, or even you're put in certain positions where you're able to do certain things. You're born into certain places. It's not all you. Now, we have to work hard, and a lot of people think that just because they work hard, it's all them. And a lot of Christians mess up, and they think it's all God. No, there's a part for you to do, and there's a part for God to do. So you have to do both of those parts. You have to do and work and sweat and put what you're supposed to put in, but without the seed of God, without the blessing of God, it comes to naught. So you have to understand Truett says first, and even his name is different. You know, Truett. The slang used to be when you said something was really right, they would say, true that. So it's not true that, it's true it. So it's true it. So a lot of the stuff he has is really true. He owns it all. And it changes your giving mentality when you understand it's not yours. Every one of those 4 areas is not yours. The time is not yours. You're here by the grace of God. And I don't think there's a person in this room or a person listening or watching me right now who has not had a situation that if God had not intervened, they wouldn't have been here. I know I've had several of them. It's just my fault. I've had several of them where I was just sleepy on the road driving, and I had nodded off, and I woke up all of a sudden. And if I'd have just stayed nodded for another 2 or 3 seconds, I'd have been slammed into a tree. How many of you all have had that? You know, you've had situations where by just a fraction, you'd have been out of here. So I've seen stuff. So your time is not yours. A lot of people never made it out of the womb. So there are so many ways that you could have been out of here. So even your time is by the grace of God. Your talent is by the grace of God. I just listened to Joseph as he sung, and his middle name is Nathaniel, and a lot of people say we just look a whole lot alike, but there's one thing that's not alike. I can't sing nearly as good as he can. I just can't. I was in the music business. I had to use my mind to try to create songs and put echo and all. I didn't have that good of a voice. I did not have that good of a voice at all. His voice is way better than mine. My son Christian has perfect pitch. I can't tell you what note is what. So I just don't have. See, but those talents, they come from God. Now you work, you develop, you practice, but perfect pitch is an inborn talent. It's something you're born with. You didn't earn it. You can't really train it. It's something you were given with. That kind of voice, you can train a certain amount to make your voice a lot better. But all of you all who've heard church choirs all these years, you all know this. Now, it may be a revelation to some of you, but I'm going to just say this real softly because I don't want to offend anybody. Some folk can't sing. I don't care what you do. I don't care how much training you put on them. Some folk can't sing. That's just all it is to it. Some folks just can't sing. That's just all it is to it. There's a talent that you are graced with by the grace of God. And then there's your treasure. All of our money, When you really understand truth comes from God. Just see, even just where you were born makes a difference. How you were born. The country that you were born in makes a difference. You could have been born in another place and you would have never had these opportunities. The U.S. is still among the top countries in the world. It's the promised land. That's why so many people try to get here. You're in the middle of the promised land. You could have been born over in the middle of some other place where they are just every day struggling and scrimping and scraping, trying to eat. They don't have clean water. They got disease running everywhere. I haven't seen these places. So you were born in a place that you had nothing to do with. So your treasure, he owns it all. And even the ability for your touch, sometimes your ability for empathy, your ability to comfort, all of this stuff, they're gifts that come from God. It's a gift. That's what George spoke about on his last message. It's a gift. So when you understand all of these things, as we are blessed to bless others, he owns it all. That was the first thing Truett said. He owns it all. Second thing he said is this. Every day is a new opportunity. Every day you have a new opportunity to bless someone. It's why if you go into either of my offices, if you go into my home, I've got this big old poster, and on the thing are my daily to-dos, and one of them is help someone every day. Every day is a new opportunity. If you didn't help someone yesterday, you can help them today. If you don't help them today, you can help someone tomorrow. Every day is a new opportunity. And everywhere you go, there are people who need your help, even if it's just a word. But when you start making it up in your mind and spirit, I'm going to be a blessing. I'm not just going places to see what folk can do for me. I am going to be a walking blessing. As we are blessed, we shall bless others. Every day is a new opportunity. He owns it all. Every day is a new opportunity. The third thing that Truett said was action required. Action required. He said there's a big difference between your beliefs and your action. A lot of folk believe some stuff, but they just don't act on it. A lot of people believe you ought to be good. A lot of people believe you ought to be kind. A lot of people believe you ought to forgive. A lot of people believe you ought to tithe. But there's a big difference between what people believe and what they do. And Truett says action is required. You must first believe it, but if you believe it and don't do it, you might as well not believe it. Action is required. So if you really believe that you ought to be a blessing, if you really believe that you ought to help people, you need to start doing it. And there's an opportunity every day for you to do this because he owns it all. So that was the third thing that Truett said. Action is required. The fourth thing that he said is this. He says, remember your blessings. Remember your blessings. When you learn how to remember and be thankful for all that God has given you, it just changes your vibration. I talked about last week how I started just a gratitude journal of at least thanking and being thankful for one thing every single day. It just makes a difference because the world will gear you to focusing on what is wrong. God tries to gear you to focus on the blessings that he has given you. And when you start focusing on your blessings, it just makes a difference. See, the problem that psychologists say in terms of the reason why people are so stingy is because of what's called the scarcity complex. The scarcity complex basically says that we often in this society, we exist in a mentality that certain things are scarce and I got to get all I can before it runs out. You don't really think about not giving somebody else or allowing them to have air because there's no concept in the average person's mind of there being a scarcity of air. There's just plenty of air. But you do think about there being a scarcity of money. In truth, there's plenty of money. There's a distribution issue. There's not a shortage issue. It's plenty of money. It's just a distribution issue. So when you remember your blessings, when you start realizing God has blessed me with all of this, when you start realizing how much you have, it begins to change your mentality away from the scarcity complex. And some of you may be thinking, well, Pastor, I'm having a little trouble paying some of my bills. That's in the treasure department, but there are different levels of treasure. And your money has nothing to do with those other three. You may be running short of money, but you got time, you got talent, and you have touch. And if you even take the percentage of your money that God has said, your treasure will even change. But first, you have to remember your blessings of everything God has given you and all of that He has blessed us with. And when that happens, it changes what we have to work with. When we start writing down all of the stuff, and I'm not talking about just material stuff. When you start writing down all of the stuff that you have and all that God has blessed you with in relationships and health and clarity of mind and in peace and all of this stuff, just even in food. Most people in America, the Bible, when you go through the Bible, so much was about food. That was the main material issue. That's why famines were such, the biggest problem in America? The biggest problem? Trying to lose weight. That's the biggest problem. We got so much that we got in excess, so our biggest problem is trying not to eat so much because we're blessed with so much. Remember your blessings. So these are what Truett talked about. He owns it all. Every day is a new opportunity. Action is required. Remember your blessing. And the fifth one of those 5, thank Him. Thank Him. It's one thing to remember your blessing. It's another thing to thank Him. When we are in a spirit of thanks, and see, when you start thanking God, you will eventually start thanking some other people too, because generally everybody has had someone in their life that has benefited, has blessed, has imparted into your life. When you live in a spirit of gratitude and thanks, it changes how you flow through this life. And then when Truett got through going through those 5 things, he owns it all. Every day is a new opportunity. Action is required. Remember your blessings and thank Him. He said, what do the first letters of each one of those statements spell? H-E-A-R-T. He says, when you begin to bless other people, and when you really have the generosity factor, it changes your heart. So number 1 killer in America today is cardiovascular or heart disease. It's true on a medical basis, but it's also true on a spiritual basis. When we become more generous, it changes our hearts. As we are blessed, we don't need to think, I'm just going to get more and more and more and more. As we are blessed, we shall bless others. So Truett went through 3 major things in the book, The Generosity Factor. The 4 areas of your giving. The 5 principles that undergird your giving. And what he called the 3 M's. And the 3 M's, he says, are the 3 major decisions that you will make in your life. And those 3 major decisions are master, mate, and mission. Who is your master? When God is your master, it changes how you handle your time, your talent, your treasure, and your touch. If man is your master, if money is your master, that changes those 4 things too. So the first thing Truett said is you have to make a decision on who is your master. Second thing he says is you have to make a decision on who is your mate, who you marry. That makes a big difference who you marry. That makes a big difference. He said, besides God, the second decision is who you marry, because that can mess you up or bless you up. And he's got a whole, and I remember when they were having the big public issue because all of the LBGTPQ, whatever, all of that, they were coming against Chick-fil-A. And he just made one statement. He says, all of us are still married to our first wives. Your mate is your second most important decision, because that makes a big, 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 big difference. And you need to do your best to get that thing right, because that thing will make a huge, that's not something you need to rush into. You need to spend your time and make sure you got the right person with that. Pastor James and Minister Stephanie did a thing called the Love Screener at the lovescreener.com. So if you're not married, you need to take that. You need to go through the Love Screener course. The third thing was mission. What are you destined to do? And so many of us don't really know our missions in life. And when you find who is your master, who is your mate, and what is your mission. Kathy taught Sunday school over 50 years, and yet he was a billionaire. He understood his mission, and he made his mission powerful and popular even through chicken. So whatever you are destined to do, remember those things and the truisms of those things. Jesus said in Acts 20:35, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And when you understand that, it takes your life and your spirit to a higher level. That ends the series of the mission statements of Century Systems and thewoman.com. You can go to brothersoftheword.com. You can listen to all 9 of these messages or send them to a friend absolutely free of charge. All of our sermons, we've got over 2,000 sermons on the web absolutely free of charge. It's something that we give because it is more blessed to give than to receive. Thank you for joining us today at Brothers of the Word, because, brother, you need the Word.